Recording? Hey, what's up guys? It is Cameron from We Are Film, and Zach is behind the camera right now because today we're bringing something to you very special. That is, we're gonna be actually doing a full-on setup and kind of testing some equipment and talking about a couple different ways we can do these shots. The reason being is right now, if you haven't seen, we finished up the Rickety Man. It's over on the YouTube channel, link down below, all that kind of stuff. Now that that is done, we have a couple other projects kind of in the hopper getting ready, and one of them is actually going to be a feature-length film. The trick is that we don't have a massive budget to make this feature-length film. And recently Zach and I went out to the Anomaly Film Festival and watched the movie Hellbender, and we're really inspired by the idea that they shot an entire film on a Canon 5D with I think some basic Canon L series lenses, and it was awesome. We loved it. That idea inspired us to look at making films differently, and especially to looking at making a feature film differently. Everything doesn't have to be 100% big budget with tons of equipment, and we wanted to prove to ourselves, not only that, but just to kind of put it out there in general that we can make a feature film using guerrilla filmmaking tactics, but also spending some of the money where we actually think it's worth it. Things like actors and food and maybe special effects or makeup, stuff like that. That goes a long way in production value compared to your actual equipment. So what we want to do today is shoot a test scene with just Zach and I to show how could we make a scene in a feature film that, chews up some of the running time, so a 1.5 to 2 minute scene with very little setup, with pretty much just the camera and some elements. So let's go over here. This is the setup we have. We have the Ursa Mini Pro G2. This is ours with a Sigma 18-35, and we are running it with the Kessler shuttle dolly and the quick rails and some Apple boxes. And again, just kind of prove that we can make a feature film scene, so just a scene from it, of what we could do and how we could do it efficiently. And we'll show you what it looks like. So you might be thinking, that looked awesome. But you also might be thinking, motherfuckers, that shit ain't low budget. We thought the same thing. So we actually are also shooting the entire scene on this. And if you can't tell, this is the Panasonic G7, and this is on a very cheap monopod head on a glide gear slider. It's on Apple boxes, but you could use stools and it'd do the same thing really. But yeah, so this is a way cheaper rig. Actually, the G7 is about $500, and usually you probably find it for even less. So we're gonna shoot the whole scene, do the same thing, kind of see what happens. So we have G7 here, and we have this on, this is maybe a little more expensive than like a budget-friendly tripod, but it's still a pretty cheap tripod in the scheme of things, and obviously any tripod will work, so it's not that big of a deal. And we're not trying to prove that one is better than the other, because obviously the Ursa Mini Pro is so much better than the G7, but the idea is that emotionally, through story, and just through the entire, concept of your film, you can still tell a compelling story and use camera movement or what's around you to create a good looking film. Hopefully the story will compel you enough to kind of forget about the camera, what it's being shot on, or how it's being used. The other thing is, if you look around, we're in a cool location, but this is free for us to use. It's something we have access to. It's just a torn apart apartment that's gonna be rebuilt. So the cool thing is, by using some interesting location that is free, things like parking garages, the woods, those are free places you can use, as long as they're public and you're not trespassing. And hopefully, depending on how the location is set up, have some really cool visual interests. So using free doesn't mean it's bad. So you might be thinking, what about audio? Well, obviously it sounds like crap in here. But audio is a huge part of any production, no matter what size budget, and obviously in our case, especially in a low budget, because your visuals might be lacking in certain areas. Now, of course, we're shooting a suspenseful scene where there really isn't any on-set audio. We don't need special sound effects, there's no conversations, nothing's happening that has to happen right here. You know, maybe we get an ambience which might be helpful, but right now there's construction outside and it's kind of echoey, so we probably won't. What we're gonna do is use sound effects packs and music packs later to really spice things up. So music and sound effects packs can be a huge help when it comes to any type of low budget production in just amping up the overall feel. So one of the first things for sound effects that we're gonna use is from a library or sound pack, however you look at it, called Soundly. So soundly.com, I think it's like 15 bucks a month, or you can pay yearly and it's about $110 for the year. But if your production is only 2 months or post-production is only 2 months, you know, just pay for it for 2 months. So for us here in this situation, we wanna get some cool sound effects that reflect the ambience, as well as possibly what's going on in our character's mind. In this case, Zach, he's thinking, it's a kind of intense thought, and it's something that's probably emotional. So we're gonna have some sound effects that are gonna reflect that. And on the other side, we're gonna use some music to help things feel a lot more intense. So we're actually using the Triune Digital music packs. Now, these are awesome because they're royalty free and they're stuff that we can pretty much put anywhere. Now, again, Triune Digital did actually send us these, but we have no affiliation with them. We're not getting paid to say anything. It's just, you know, we like using them. But the Volume 2 and Volume 3 have a lot of different tracks overall, but then they also have the breakdowns of these tracks. So things like hits and risers and the stems. So you can kind of take bits and pieces from each and create your own kind of Frankenstein piece of music. And for us, because we don't have a composer, that's awesome and it keeps things incredibly low. You can go ahead and buy these packs and, you know, obviously they keep coming out with more. So you can just keep adding to your library and you can just use these forever. Not only is it just an investment in your film, but it's kind of an investment in the future films as well. So let's take a peek at all this footage edited together, both one and the next, and then also comparing at the same time to see how I think they both do total justice to the scene, but obviously there is a difference in quality. But they're still low budget, so let's go take a look.